I just always really appreciate the fact that they are so accessible and that we do get so much information. And one thing that I appreciate about Dawn, Jared, is that there's no question that she won't answer. And there is nothing she's going to avoid. You know, you can ask her anything and she'll answer it. And I think that creates such a good relationship between the local media and her, because we feel like when we go to practice, okay, like, we can ask her anything about this team and she's going to answer it, you know, in a truthful and honest way. And I respect that so much. Welcome onto the sideline, everybody. Matt Dowell and Jared Parker with you today. It's an emergency pod. Emergency pod is what we're calling it, because the South Carolina women's basketball team has begun practice. And, you know, Jared was at practice yesterday when everything was getting underway. And I texted him and I was like, I feel like we need to do a podcast episode about this, about the biggest storylines, kind of continue our preview of the preseason. You know, we still have a little over a month until the season actually gets underway. Some exhibitions coming up in a few weeks. But Jared, before we kind of get into everything, you got to go to practice yesterday. We got an email, you know, early in the morning that was like, hey, practice today, be there, 1:45. And we were like, oh, we're on it. All right. So Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks are officially back on the court. They are back and ready to go. What are some of the things? I know you didn't get to actually see practice yesterday, but I don't know. What was the vibe? What can you tell people?
I mean, as always, when we arrived, Dawn Staley, very chill, you know, a champ running around. And it was very chill, but focused. I did see Isla McDowell shooting.
Okay.
I got to kind of pay attention to that, and she can shoot. I know Dawn Staley, and we'll get into that later. Dawn Staley said she could shoot, and she said both the freshmen can shoot, but Isla can shoot. She was knocking down threes with ease. But yeah, it was a very playful vibe. Raven and Tanaya, you could see their relationship is really good. They were playing with each other and whatnot. The bigs were working on post moves and whatnot. So chill vibe, but focused.
Yeah, which I think is what you want on a first day. Of course, the core of the team is coming back. Some changes, though, of course. You know, Ashlyn Watkins not playing this season. Mylasia Fulwiley transferring to LSU. But they did add Tanaya Latson and Medina Okot. So a lot of the same faces, but a few new ones, including, you know, the new freshmen on the team. So it's going to be, you know, a mix of both. The familiar faces and then also some new pieces that I'm excited for. And frankly, Jared, I think they're going to be better than last season. I think with the addition of Tanaya, who is just a pure scorer, they have a true big in Medina Okot. You add in these freshmen, and then players like Joyce Edwards are going to get better. I don't know about you. I'm expecting South Carolina, though, to be, I mean, they were great last year. They won the SEC and got to the national championship. I think they're going to be better this year.
Yeah, it is always hard to say a team like that is going to be better, but when you add a 25 point per game score like Tanaya Latson, and not that I expect her to have that same amount of points. Who knows? She could, but there's just so much more wealth to spread on this team. But when you add someone like her, you add someone like Medina Okot, you have Joyce Edwards, who had such a fantastic freshman year, and she's coming back, and Dawn said she'd been working as well. I can very easily see this team taking a step higher than last year.
One thing I love about Dawn Staley and this Gamecock women's basketball team is that they are so accessible, which is huge for our coverage. The local media here in Columbia and the South Carolina women's basketball team has such a great relationship, and that's really because we get to talk to them a lot. And we get to see them a lot, which is fantastic. So on a day like yesterday with practice, you know, we get an email saying, you know, practice is going to end at this time, but get there, you know, at this time just to make sure that you're there on time. Some days we do get to watch the last 10 minutes or so, just depending on the day, but then it's kind of chill. Like, I mean, you know, we get the cue to come over. Dawn's like, hey, what's up, everybody? You know, we ask the questions for 5 to 10 minutes because we do talk to them. I mean, when the season gets going almost every single day. So we get to talk to them a lot, but I just always really appreciate the fact that they are so accessible and that we do get so much information. And one thing that I appreciate about Dawn, Jared, is that there's no question that she won't answer. And there is nothing she's going to avoid. You know, you can ask her anything and she'll answer it. And I think that creates such a good relationship between the local media and her, because we feel like when we go to practice, okay, like, we can ask her anything about this team and she's going to answer it, you know, in a truthful and honest way. And I respect that so much.
Yeah, I love how open they are. And I'm glad you brought this up because it was something that I was thinking about with Raven Johnson, actually, because you said usually we get our cue to come over, but funny enough, Raven actually came straight up to us. And Diana, who works with the women's basketball team, she didn't give us the cue. Raven just came up to us and she was like, "What's up, y'all?" And we're like, "Oh, are we doing this? I guess so." So it did kind of speak to me as, I think Raven really is embracing her leader role, knowing that we're probably going to be going to her a lot as, the player representative for a lot of, sometimes the tougher questions, sometimes to speak for the team in that player role. But I thought that was cool that she's embracing that role.
And that might sound like something small, but for a player to come over on their own to our, what we call a gaggle, our scrum of press, that does say something. That maybe Ravens, she's ready. She's ready to be that leader. Last year, the past couple of years, it's been Pow Pow. Before that, Aaliyah, Bree, Zaya. So they were kind of the ones to take that helm and be the go-to if we needed a soundbite. So maybe Raven is going to be that player this year. I also should say too, Jared, I'm really excited since we're talking about the preseason. I will be an AP voter again for women's basketball this season. So I'm very, very excited about that. We haven't really done anything really. The only thing we've gotten is an email saying, "Do you want to do it again?" which is great and exciting. It was an immediate yes from me. Last season was my first time being an AP voter, and it's funny because it's a situation that really fell into my lap. I'm going to be honest, I didn't know that local TV people could be AP voters. That might sound really dumb. I really thought it was like national, reporters and then beat writers, because the AP, when I think of the AP, I think of writers, because that's really the majority of, who's involved with the AP. So I didn't know that I could even do it. I did not know it was a possibility. And then last season, I got a text from someone that was like, "Hey, they're looking for like a South Carolina kind of representative, like a reporter from South Carolina to be part of it. The deadline's tomorrow. They need one more spot to fill. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, yeah, I want to do it. So, and I have loved every second of it. I love rankings. I love stats. I love all that kind of stuff. So I joined because I think the AP really wants to have a mix of everybody from all over the country, to make it as equal as possible, to get, the insight from people from all over the country. And so I'm so honored to be part of it last year. I'm honored to be part of it again, which is going to be the 50th anniversary of the AP women's basketball poll. So that'll be cool to be a part of. But I do want to say, I take it super seriously. I spend probably an hour and a half every Sunday night on my rankings, because my rule is, if someone asks me, "Why did you put this team there?" I want to have a reason for it. So I try and really, really think through everything. Honestly, I have not thought about preseason rankings really at all, because we've been so football focused right now. We'll have to submit our ballots in a few weeks. But anyway, I do want everyone to know that I am going to be an AP voter this year. I'm very excited to do it for the second year in a row. And once women's basketball really starts rolling, I'll share my ballot on our podcast. I'll take you guys through my thoughts, my rankings every single week, because I like having conversations, and they're public anyway. So I'm not going to hide, behind what I got to say. But I'm excited. But yeah,
I'm excited for you. I love picking your brain. Matt knows this. I love picking his brain about the AP polls. So I can't wait that we'll actually be able to get to do it here, because I know when we started the podcast last year, it was mostly postseason already, so it wasn't relevant anymore at the time. But throughout the season, I can't wait to pick your brain, see the philosophy that goes into the picks.
It's fun. It's fun, and it can be stressful. I always tell people though, usually 1 through 10 is pretty easy. It's really like 15 through 25. That gets really hard, because a lot of them have very similar resumes. So once the season really gets underway, you got to do a lot of, okay, they have this many wins. Who's lost to who, all that kind of stuff. Who has good wins compared to bad losses. There's a lot that I think about, but I kind of have an idea of who my 1 through 3 is gonna be. I really only thought about the top 3. After that, I have not sat down and gotten to think about it. But anyway, I'm looking forward to sharing that as the season comes up. And again, we'll start that here in a few weeks once women's basketball gets underway. All that being said, Dawn Staley did talk to us yesterday. For how long did you guys talk?
I recorded it on my phone. It was about 13 minutes.
13 minutes. All right. Well, you know what? We have a podcast, so we're gonna let you hear all 13 minutes of Dawn Staley and what she had to say to start the season yesterday at the Carolina Coliseum.
Dawn, you're no stranger to having leadership, especially in your backcourt. Just how much has Ray come in, maybe recommitted this season to be the leader, not the champion before, but to be this team's own voice?
It's important for our point guards to have a voice on our teams. And Raven in her last season, she's been in the gym, she's been working. And not only do we need her voice, we need her example. how to play the position and how to run our basketball team, and she's giving it her best shot. I think she's probably in the best, probably physical, mental, like just complete. We'd like for her to have gotten here a little sooner, but that's our process. But we need her the most, the way she is right now for our team this year.
Coach, anyone stand out in terms of improvement or just maybe surprising you or anything like that from last season to this season?
I mean, everybody. It's a long list. So it really is a long list. Joyce is better, shooting the ball better. Everybody. Miriam is better. Adele's improving. Like everybody. Tessa, everybody's improved. And, you know, we usually see improvement from a lot of players, and it's just true to form for the returners.
How have the newcomers started to fit in, especially when you have a senior like Latson coming in who's played a lot of ball?
Great. She's her maturity, her practice habits, she's really coachable. Like she just wants to win. She wants to get better and improve her positioning and being a pro. Not to say that Florida State wasn't doing that, but sometimes when you change up, you know, it's just different. You know, will we need her to do some of the same things that she did for Florida State? Absolutely. Can we help her see some other stuff by just having just a more seasoned basketball team when it comes to like tournament play and just the amount of games that we've had in the postseason? It will definitely help her, and she will definitely help us.
Dawn, I know Ashlyn announced that she was taking this year off. What exactly does that look like? You know, rehabbing on her own. Is she around here at all? Is she focusing on being a student? And what were those conversations like with you and her?
I mean, obviously it's hard because you know basketball is a big part of what an athlete does. But the mental part of it too is draining, and if your mentals isn't right, you know it's going to have a compound effect. I think it's pretty brave of her to be able to do something like this. I think she'll come back. She's rehabbing with us. So I mean, it's you know as much as we can see her, we see her. Like I text her often just to check up on her, and everything's going according to plan, and it's what she needs at this time.
Is she enrolled in school, Dawn?
No. She's taking a year off.
Some big news with Nike and the contract. It's not every day a former college player like Asia kind of written into that. What can you say, I guess, about that and being a Nike school next year? And do you think it impacts recruiting in any way?
First, I know it's a big Under Armour Nike thing. Under Armour was great to us. We wore Under Armour when we won 3 national championships. So it's nothing against what they've done to us. We've made great relationships and friendships with them. I've been a Nike athlete for over 30 years. So for me personally, it's it's helpful. Like I can stop by designer shoes because I got a lot of Nike gear, a lot of Nike shoes. But I do think it helps recruiting. You know, change helps recruiting. Just change, and it's Nike. Most kids, no matter what kind of packages they get, seem to be attracted to Nike. No matter what it is, you could get less, and they're attracted to it. But I do think Nike will do every sport here right, and I think women's basketball will be a place in which they got a lot of room in which to display our legends. Like Alicia's a Nike athlete, Asia's a Nike athlete. I think that's it. But you got 2 good ones who have done extremely well in the league, and hopefully we'll feel the love.
Sticking with Asia, she's won her 4th MVP. You played with 2 of the players that have 3 in Cheryl Swoops and Lisa Leslie, so you're qualified to answer this question. Do you think Asia's the best player ever?
Ever?
Ever.
I mean, she got one more than everybody else, right? Ever. She's got an MVP for half of the seasons that she's been in the league. I don't think that's ever been done. God, she's the best in the world, for sure. She's the very best in the world.
On a non-conference schedule, appears to be a little lighter maybe than in previous years. What was the reasoning for that?
It wasn't what I said, you know. Schedule is hard. People don't want to play us. I mean, even, you know, having lost what we lost. I mean, it's really, really a hard thing. So, you know, instead of, you know, the big competitive games, we've added some HBCUs just to lift up, you know, every aspect of our sport. You know, it's not every team will go and play an HBCU on their home court, and we feel like, you know, it's a great game, great competition, great coaching, and if we can lift because we play the game and give some notoriety to the HBCUs, then we'll do that.
Coach,
and I hope the committee takes that into consideration.
Coach, your head coaching tree keeps growing now, and you'll be playing both of your former assistants coming up. And then Coach Wendell, how's he doing? Where's his areas of expertise, I guess, fitting in with this team?
Yeah. I don't know what he's doing. I wish he tells me because I have a better scouting report. So he's doing great. He's doing great. I think Winston is a head coach in his own right, and he's getting an opportunity to run his own program and, you know, put in what he wants to put in on both sides of the basketball. I'm probably almost certain he's going to be a help. He's a gap help defending the defensive team. I'm almost certain he's going to be that. Offensively, I don't know. I'm sure he'll open the floor up and try to capitalize on us being in help side, right? Great. And then Fred is great. I mean, one of the in recruiting, got to recruit great staff members and talent. We got Wendell. You know, yes, I did mention the fact that the seat he would be in. Two head coaches, two guys have gotten head coaching jobs. So, you know, that was enough to get him to just kind of consider it because he is a California guy through and through. But he did say he's a Southerner now, and it's only taken 2, 3, 4 months for him to realize there's some good stuff happening here on this side of the country.
Coach, you had a couple players go to Arizona for some 3v3 ball. Did you notice them picking up anything new from that experience?
I mean, except Chloe came back with little acts during the tournament. You need to play, George and I need to be playing more pick and roll. Okay, Chloe. What about the 4 other people that's going to be on the court and it's not 3x3? But I think anytime that your players can play outside the season and play a competitive competition event, it's always a good thing.
Coach, on that note, what was your sense of the energy and focus from this team this offseason, maybe compared to other off seasons?
Well, I mean, this offseason was kind of like no other. Like we didn't have our entire team here this summer. Joyce was gone, and then Isla, our freshmen, they weren't here because they were with their national teams. We really didn't do anything besides learn some offensive concepts, and that's not much. So we're a little bit far behind, but this team really works hard. They are extremely coachable. They are, we're gaining ground from not having put a lot in, so we're making up with it with just the intangible piece of them just, they want to be pleasers, and they're listening, and they're able to actually really try to execute. And then, you know, just because we weren't together as a team, they individually have gotten better. So we did some individual, you know, player development stuff because we didn't have our entire team. We'd have had our defense in the summer, and we got some of it in, but we're not where we were, but we're not where we need to be.
What have you seen from the freshmen, and what are your expectations for them to contribute this year?
I mean, they're good. I mean, they're good. I mean, actually, they're pretty good. Like they're blending in. They're good listeners. That's one. They are really good basketball players, really smart. And then I think both of them can shoot the ball. Like they can really shoot the ball, like really impressively. So I'm hoping that holds true, throughout the season. But and they're not shy about shooting. They're not shy about putting the ball up. So I like that. Like they're blending in nicely.
So, Jared, as we kind of listened to Dawn Staley and what she had to say, there were 3 things that stood out to me. But first, I want to ask you, what stood out to you? Because you were the one there. You got to film it, ask questions and all that. What stood out to you from what Dawn had to say? Because the first one's always fun because we're kind of getting our new look at the new team.
I mean, obviously, she had some GOAT talk there with A'ja Wilson. I think that was fun to hear Dawn talk about. Obviously, she didn't give a very straightforward answer. And I've seen some people kind of rumbling about that on social media. I don't think it's that A'ja Wilson is maybe not the GOAT or that Dawn doesn't think she can be the GOAT. I think the way Dawn sees it is A'ja Wilson is 8 years into her career and has 4 MVPs. We don't know. Like, this could just be, the surface. We do not know the length of what A'ja Wilson is going to accomplish in this league. So I think it's more like, hey, let's table this question, maybe revisit in 4 or 5 years, because who knows? In 4 or 5 years, there could be a couple more MVPs, a couple more titles on the table to talk about.
Maybe this year, who knows? And, she just turned 29. I think if A'ja was like 37,
right?
Maybe that's an easier question if she's on the back half of her career, but she's still in her prime. I think that's a hard question to ask. And also, Dawn is so well versed in the history of this game, and she knows all of, the Mount Rushmores, the GOATs of this game. It's a hard question. I don't know if I would call A'ja the GOAT yet, just because it's still happening and she's only 29. I had 3 quick bullet points of things that stood out to me. First was the non-conference scheduling. I thought it was really cool that she shouted out the HBCUs that they're going to be playing, because I think when we all first looked at the schedule, we were like, not a ton of like big showdowns that we're used to in November, December. There are a few, Duke, Louisville, Southern Cal, perhaps Texas, UCLA, on that Thanksgiving week. Not overwhelming though, but I think it's cool that they're going to play some HBCUs in the non-conference. I'm also really excited to see the Raven-Tenaya partnership up close and personal because, they played together in high school. And we've talked about it for so long now, but I'm excited to see like what they can do because Raven's just an amazing passer. She's a great leader. Tenaya's an incredible shooter. And also, how is Tenaya's game going to translate to the Gamecock system? I'm excited to see all of that. And third, I know some people might roll their eyes at this, but I was kind of surprised because it was the first time we as the local media have spoken to Dawn, I think since the national championship. It's been a minute.
I asked about something from May, and I didn't even realize it was that long.
So it's been a minute.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute since the local media's talked to Dawn. I was a little surprised, though, that no one asked her about Malaysia, just because we as local media have not talked to her about it yet, and because it's such a big story. But I guess then I started thinking, well, she did get asked about it on the Breakfast Club on a national platform, and so she did answer it there. And then it has been a few months. I was a little shocked that it didn't come up, but I guess that kind of shows that everyone has moved on, and that's a great thing as, as the season getting ready to start. But anyway, those are my 3 big takeaways. Also, as we transition to our next topic, and also before I transition to the next topic, you guys, your preseason thoughts, let us know when it comes to Gamecock women's basketball, your biggest questions and storylines, what you guys are thinking going into the season. I'm really excited to see what this team can do. Now, as we transition from the college level to the pros, you spoke about A'ja Wilson getting her historic 4th WNBA MVP award in 8 seasons in the league. Insanity. And they've actually all come since 2020. Right. So, I mean, it's not even been 8 years. It's been an incredible journey. But I was really interested in all the conversations going on social media about the voting because there were so many conversations going on about who should win, what the order should be, 1 through 5 of the 5 finalists. So I reached out to a voter and just wanted to have a conversation and pick her brain about it. So I talked to Meghan L, my friend from the USA Today and For the Win, who is a WNBA WNBA voter, and I got to talk to her at length about the voting process, her thoughts on how she decided who was going to win the award and her rankings of these players, and also the legacy of A'ja Wilson. I'm here with Meghan L Hall from USA Today for the win. Meghan, welcome to our show. I'm so excited to have you on. I'm so honored that you said yes to coming on our show because you're a big deal. I mean, you are very, very well known in the WNBA space, and I'm excited to talk to you today about A'ja Wilson, the WNBA voting process, which you are a part of, and everything in between. First of all, though, for our listeners and our viewers, how long have you covered the WNBA?
Well, one, thank you so much for having me on. Two, actually has not been that long. So this is my third full season of covering the W. I actually started kind of in the summer, I would say, of 23, when I was making my pivot into sports, like dead smack in the middle of the season. June, I think it was my first game covering the WNBA. It was an Atlanta Dream, New York Liberty game. And I've been here like ever since, been hooked since then.
Man, what a time to be part of it. I mean, because the league has just exploded in that time. And so today I know we're going to talk about the WNBA voting process first, because you do get to vote on that. You get to vote on who you think should be the MVP, all the other awards as well. Yes? It's all together? Yeah.
I do.
And so for the WNBA MVP voting specifically, because A'ja Wilson, obviously former Gamecock, the greatest Gamecock women's basketball player that we have ever seen and that we've ever, covered, winning a fourth MVP. And it is historic, first player ever in the history of this league to do that. When you're going through the voting process, because, the MVP conversation, for whatever reason, starts like before the season even begins. And so narratives begin, and then things start to change, obviously, as the season plays out. So when you were going through your voting process, what's your criteria for voting? What are you specifically looking for as a voter when you're trying to place an award that is going to go in the history books?
Yeah, so it's really hard for MVP because there is no criteria, right? Like the only award out of the major ones we select that has criteria is actually Sixth Player of the Year. It's basically you have to come off the bench more games than you start. But other than that, everything is essentially like it's subjective. So that makes it really tough as a voter for you to come up with your own criteria because it's different for each person. For me personally, I don't go into a season with like, oh, this person is probably going to win MVP, right? Like you probably come up in your mind with a couple of people who might be in the conversation, right? Based on last year's play, Nafisa Collier losing in the finals. Everyone's like, oh, Fee knows she's got to play the MVP level, right? For them to get back. So, okay, early indications are like by and large Fee fed into that. But then, like, for example, if you're feeding into those narratives, you're going to miss, like, Alicia Gray, who was in the early conversations, which another Gamecock is like, wait, what? Like, Leisha's in the MVP conversation. She has this career year, which was fantastic to see her be in that early conversation. Then there's Alyssa Thomas, for example, who started the year injured, but then came in like the engine that she is and started putting together this impeccable season. So I think the early conversations were really, really I guess you'd say strong. The murmurs were really strong for it being Fee and then like everyone else, right? Completely fine. But it's funny because I went back and I looked at my tweets from like earlier in the year and like, yeah, right around June, I was like, all right, yeah, it's Fee, Alicia Gray, and then like a gaggle of people at like third, fourth, fifth, right? And in that list was A'ja Wilson. And so it's so funny because, and I wrote about this as well, is that like I always thought like you can't count out anybody really, right? Like MVP is not an award that's won in June typically, other than like maybe last season where it was like A'ja Wilson, a planet-sized gap, and everyone else for the entire season. Like that's basically like that's the only season where I felt like okay, like it was probably fine to do that. But this season I felt like evaluating the entire season, it was impossible to ignore what A'ja Wilson was doing, even if she wasn't putting up quote unquote A'ja Wilson numbers early on, right? We were used to this 27 and 10 plus rebounds, right? Well, A'ja Wilson was putting up 21 and 9 before the All-Star break. So it wasn't like they were just terrible numbers. They just weren't as good as they were before, which is an anomaly season. And Vegas was pretty gross, right? Early on, they were so up and down. Nobody really knew what to make of them. Like it wasn't a hot take to think, oh, would they actually make the playoffs? Because they were that like gross. But to that point, a switch flipped. after All-Star. And not only did Vegas go on the streak, but so did Asia Wilson. She just kept getting better and better and better. Before the season ends, you have 13 30-point double-doubles. She's leading the league in multiple categories, including points per game, blocks per game. Like, she's up there in rebounds. Like, what is even happening with what I'm watching? That's kind of how I'm thinking as a voter. And I'll be honest with you, I was waffling. And you're probably getting my kiddo in the background now. So shout out to anybody who's listening to this. You're getting my youngest in the background who's probably agreeing with me. But I was waffling about my decision because I didn't want to snub anyone in terms of like, hey, don't let me have my blinders on. So it really was for me going back and forth between Fee, AT, and Asia for a good portion of the back half of the season. But to that end, Asia Wilson is almost inevitable. And it was hard for me to overlook what she was doing. And I knew in my mind that if she got Las Vegas into the top 4, like, I had to consider her as a serious MVP candidate. And not only did she get them there, they ended up with a 2 seed. And that was like, all right, thanks so much for playing, everyone else, like, go home. And so for me, I know this is a really long answer, but I'm trying to give insight into like the way that I think. But for me, it's not just you being the best person on your team. Like, that is probably a given for you to be in some sort of MVP consideration. You also have to impose your will on every single team in the league. And so you've got to do that on both ends of the ball. I really tried to get players that I feel like do that on both ends of the ball. Sometimes you'll get a little grace from me. Like, Kelsey Mitchell is probably not as great as of a defender, but she's a prolific scorer. So that kind of makes up for it in terms of her being in that MVP voting mix. But you've got to be prolific on both sides of the ball. You've got to be leading in multiple categories, right, to get that sort of consideration from me. And so that's kind of how I evaluated. Ultimately, I ended up going with Asia Wilson because of the season that she had. And while it was not her previous season, it was still a fantastic season. She was still the best player, in my opinion, of the entire year. And that was no disrespect to, Alyssa Thomas, no disrespect to Alicia Gray or Nafisa Collier or Kelsey Mitchell, still the best there. But it's not an easy decision. Like, it's really not. And my family and friends will tell you, like, I was like sorting buckets trying to make this decision. And that's even with me taking notes throughout the entire year. When I tell you this is stressful, Matt, like, it's so stressful. I have notes upon notes in my phone and like in my Slack DMs and everything else. And I still struggle.
And how great, though, is it that you do have that issue when you have 3 great players, 5 great players, but probably I think everyone felt like a top 3, that it was between Asia, Fee, and AT. But how great is it that you do have to have that conversation of who is it? Because everyone's playing well. That's a good problem to have if you're the WNBA.
Yeah. It's a fantastic problem, honestly. I tell people all the time, this is the most stressful part of the year for us in the media who are voters, but it's a good stress. It's wow, there's a lot of elite talent here, and we've got to make decisions on it.
And I was going to ask you too, as a voter, how much does the second half of the season you think really impact awards like this? Because I'm an AP voter for women's college basketball, and so I vote on National Player of the Year and things like that. And last year, Hannah Hidalgo started so well, and she was really the front runner. But then Juju just started going up. And it felt impossible to ignore what Juju was doing. And so ultimately, Juju got my vote for National Player of the Year because of the trajectory of her season and how it went up. And Hannah's kind of went down. Not to say that Fee and AT's, their season went down, but just for what Asia was doing by going up. How much do you think that impacted not only your vote, but the majority of voters? Because Asia did get the majority of the votes.
Yeah, it was, to me, the most shocking thing actually wasn't necessarily that Asia won, because I kind of felt like she might, but it was the disparity in first place votes. Like, it's very interesting to me, like, what we see online, the chatter that we see online is very different from what the voters think. And so that was the shocking part where I was like, I expected it to be a close race just based on everything that I had been seeing and hearing and that sort of thing. And it wasn't as close as I thought it was going to be. So I'm like, well, have I missed the mark here? But to that point, yeah, I think Asia just continuing to go up was probably what helped seal it for her. I think here's the other thing, and this is just me speaking as a voter. What was hard for me was to reconcile Fee missing 11 games. So even if you take out the one game that she sat for rest, there's still 10 games. That's a good chunk of the season. That's about a quarter of the season missed as an MVP candidate. and for all the the accolades and the video game numbers that Fee put up, like that for me personally as a voter was hard to overlook. And so she was third on my ballot, which was a quote unquote controversial take at that moment when I shared my ballot. But there were other voters who felt that way too, and also had Fee in third, as well as there was like a smattering of people who had that Alyssa Thomas Fee like kind of swap. So yeah, there was no like easy sort of way to to do that, so to speak. But yeah, I think for me, like you can't decide MVPs like so early in the season. I think ultimately, like last year too, I felt like it was Asia Wilson's award to lose, but like Fee made some noise towards the end, so it really did make you think. But ultimately, it was still Asia. This season, it was just Fee's out there and in the front, and there's a couple other people like with her, and then who else is going to join the conversation? But I always thought it was just strange that like not enough people were talking about Asia. Not enough people were talking about AT as well for me. And I'm like, she's a walking triple double. Like, what is happening out here, people? Like, and I think sometimes we do tend to think that like, oh, this is just how it's going to be because this is the early narratives or the early storylines. But like, there's an entire season for a reason. And so I think it was really good. I would hope that like most people probably didn't make their decisions until later on in the season because there was just too much happening before then, at least reasonably to make a good decision.
And how important is it for you as a media member, as a voter, to watch things play out? Because one of my pet peeves, it's a pet peeve, Meghan, is when there are narratives set and people refuse to change the narratives. Like I'm like, well, let's watch the games. Like let's see what happens. And so for me, I want to vote and give awards based off what we're seeing. No matter who it is, I want to give people flowers and rankings and voting and all that kind of stuff based on what we are actually seeing. So how important was it for you as a voter to watch things play out and vote based on what you're seeing and not just kind of like what the chatter is?
Yeah, I think it was important for me to do that. I watch a lot of basketball by myself, just kind of slowing things down, speeding things up, going back for plays, going back and watching games. And I think for me, like I mentioned, I take a lot of notes. So if I'm watching a game and someone does something that I think I want to go back and look more into, I will take a note about that. And so that helped me keep things in perspective. So when I went back and looked at my notes, I had Veronica Burton in June on my one of my most improved players list, right? Like that's the type of stuff that like helps me keep things here because you're right. We can lean into those narratives, but I'm like, okay, this is a methodical sort of march through the season, right? Like I think it's human nature to get caught up in those narratives and get caught up in the like, oh, this player should probably win this award or these are the big names or things like that. But like, you've got to let the games play out. Like I'll give you a perfect example. I was happy to be wrong on my WNBA playoff like brackets picks because my bracket is completely busted, right? Everything I thought I could potentially predict right was wrong. But my point is the game's got to be played, right? New York Liberty are out of the playoffs. The Atlanta Dream out of the playoffs, right? Like those seemed like somewhat surefire picks, I would think, potentially to get themselves into the semifinals. But we're staring at the Mercury playing the Lynx, and we're staring at the Fever playing the Aces. This is why the game's got to be played. This is for right. Like I'm happy to be wrong because it means like okay, I let things play out. So.
For Asia Wilson, this is now her 4th MVP award. I mean, she just turned 29, Meghan, and she already has 4 MVPs, and she's not been in the league that long, relatively. She got drafted in 2018, so it's not been that long, and she already has 4 of these. What do you think her legacy is at this point, which is kind of crazy to talk about because she's only just turned 29 and she's in the prime of her career? But what do you think this 4th MVP award does for her legacy?
Yeah, I think you got to start putting Asia in the Mount Rushmore conversations. That is, I wrote it out the other day in a tweet, but it's 4 MVPs, 2 championships, 3 defensive players of the year, finals MVP, a host of like other league accolades and award. Like this is an all-time career sort of resume in just 8 seasons. And that to me is like, okay, you have to start putting Asia in those sorts of like the GOAT conversations that get so controversial with people and it gets people arguing. Yeah, you got to put her in there now at this point because she's the only player who has 4 MVPs. And then it's not just that she has MVPs. She's got D points. She's got multiple championships. Like this is a generational run here. And so I think if you aren't putting her in that conversation, like we're doing a disservice to her. And Becky Hammond said it the other day, like she isn't the Rushmore. She's the Everest now. And obviously Becky's a huge, proponent of Asia, but to that point, it made me think, I'm like, well, shoot, like you can't start these conversations without putting Asia in there. And that to me is just tremendous. Like I'm scared of what is coming next. Like what else could she possibly do? And she can still win more championships. She could still win another MVP, another D-boy.
And we haven't even mentioned all the college awards, but she also has won every single individual and team award in that space. So, and high school, she's literally won every single place that she has ever gone. And I think what makes Asia so special is she's always trying to outdo herself. So every offseason, she's always saying, what can I add? What can I do better? She's never satisfied with, all right, I'm this good. And that's good. No, she's like, I'm going to get better and better and better. Meghan, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you'd like to add about this voting process, about Asia Wilson? I will let you kind of close us out today.
Yeah, I will say this. It's an honor. It was an honor to be a voter. I take that very, very seriously. It is, again, when I say it's stress, it's stress because I care. So I'm super passionate about being able to take my time with those processes. It's an honor to get to vote for someone like Asia Wilson. Like I realize how blessed I am to not only vote for Asia, but vote for Fee, vote for all these players that are on my ballot because we're witnessing greatness, because we're witnessing just some phenomenal players. So yeah, I shout out to the WNBA for keeping me on the voting list. That is a year by year sort of decision, and I'm thankful to get to do it for another year. And yeah, for anyone that like has seen me stressed over this, I appreciate my family and friends for like listening to me like rant about me being stressed, which again, it's a good type of stress, but it's certainly one that like now I know what to expect every year, so I should just probably prepare myself for. But I think it also made it stressful because I published my ballot this year too, and that was different. There's not a lot of people who do that, and so that was a different thing for me to kind of peel the curtain back on like how I think and how I got here. So yeah, I appreciate everyone who read that, everyone who gave me their thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent. Appreciate all of y'all. And yeah, shout out to Asia Wilson for continuing to dominate this league. I look forward to continuing watching her for many more years to come. And actually, I think, honestly, Asia playing at this level elevates everyone else, too. And I know that sounds like wild to say, but like she is one of many players in this league who are just elite at nearly everything that they do. And so I really think it's a really good reflection of like where the league is headed in terms of this talent. And I can't wait to see what happens going forward.
Look, I love the transparency on social media because I know for me, for voting in the college space, I post my ballots too. I'm like, if I'm going to have the guts to do this, I'm just going to tell you guys what I think. There's no reason to like hide behind my votes. You have reasons. If you're a good voter, you have reasons behind everything. So I love that you publish things. I love that you have conversations with people. I think that's awesome. Speaking of that, where can everyone follow you? If they want to join in on the stress and the conversations, where can they follow you and find you?
Yeah, so it's actually two places. So usatoday.com, that's the main site. I do some work for them. Also, of course, For the Win is my main site. That's ftw.usatoday.com. On social, it's the same thing on everything, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all those things. It's ITS, Meghan with an H because I'm a little fancy, L Hall. Same thing on TikTok too. I forgot I was on there too. There's so many of them. But yeah, same thing on everything. Following on the journey, and I try to do a really good job of interacting with fans as well. So if there's questions you have, things you want to share, things you want to get my thoughts on, please feel free to shoot me a message there or mention me, and I'll try to do my best to get to you and answer you.
Yeah, Meghan is so good. I'm not gonna lie. I don't always get into the conversation, but I'm scrolling. I'm like, what's everybody saying? What's everybody saying in these conversations? Because you had everybody talking this past week. So yeah. Meghan, I appreciate you coming on our show so much. Again, I'm always very honored when people say yes to coming on. I love getting your thoughts on this voting process and telling us, how you went through this, because it is such a big responsibility. And I know it's one you don't take lightly. And so I really, really appreciate you taking the time today to talk to us about all your thoughts and about Asia Wilson as she continues to add to her greatness. So thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you.
I want to thank Meghan L. Hall of USA Today For the Win for talking to me about the voting process. I love transparency, Jared. So anybody that is willing to be like, hey, this is my ballot and this is why I voted. And if you want to talk about it, then let's talk about it, because we all love sports and we all have opinions. And so I applaud Meghan for being one of the few who laid it out. She's so transparent.
On her Twitter and Threads too, or X and Threads, she lays it all out there too. I love that about her.
Yeah, she's awesome. And again, I hope she'll be able to come to a game. She's based in Atlanta, so I hope she'll she'll be able to come to a game here in Columbia and check out the Gamecocks later on the season. But hopefully, if not that, we'll get to see her during the tournament when March and April come around. It's been fun to preview the Gamecock women's basketball season, to talk A'ja Wilson and her continued dominance. And again, if you didn't get to check out my conversation with her dad, Roscoe, from last month, go watch that interview, because if you want an in-depth look about how A'ja Wilson became A'ja Wilson, go check out that interview, because no one knows her better than Roscoe.
Yeah.
So it's on our YouTube channel. It's, here on our Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, podcast, wherever you guys are digesting this podcast. But Roscoe, that was a great conversation. And now we got to have another one, because she's
Right?
already doing more. But Jared, anything else you want to say about Dawn, the Gamecocks, A'ja, anything before we wrap up?
I did have to say with A'ja Wilson, when she received the MVP trophy from Kathy Engelbert and her friend, Bam Adebayo, I was so impressed with her, and I don't even know if that's the right word, but just the gratitude, like the fact that she was crying to receive number 4, and in my head I'm like, why are you crying? You've done this 3 times already. But it just shows so much of who she is as a person, that she was showing so much gratitude for number 4, and I'm in my head I'm thinking like, oh, this is routine now, this is the expectation. But she doesn't take anything for granted, and I think it really is awesome to just see how much it still means, even though it's number 4 already.
One thing I've loved about A'ja is that she's never changed, that she wears her emotions on her sleeve, and she always tells you what she's thinking. And I just think that's one thing that's made A'ja A'ja. So that was really cool to see that emotion. Because again, you would think by number 4, you'd be like, oh, thank you. What an honor. But no, it still means so much. And it shows you how much she cares. And also, I gotta say, I don't think she's posted about it, like personally, because I think she's mad that they lost game 1 to the Fever. So I think maybe she's like, okay, that's over. Like, they got a series to win.
Time to lock in.
Yeah, and of course she's taking on Aaliyah Boston and the Fever in the semifinals. So that's been fun to watch. And that game 2 is tonight.
Yes.
We're filming this on a Tuesday, so game 2 is tonight. I'm excited to see how that plays out. I love watching A'ja and Aaliyah go one-on-one. It's really, really fun. As someone who got to cover both of them at South Carolina, it's fun to watch them go at it in the pros, because they are, to me, they're the top 2 when it comes to all-time Gamecock women's basketball players. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Thank you for listening. As always, make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment, and follow. He's Jared Parker. I'm Matt Dowell. We'll be back here on Thursday. Claire Foley and I will have your South Carolina-Kentucky football game day preview. So we'll see you here on Thursday for another edition of South Carolina Sideline.